America has officially pulled the plug on USS Gerald Ford's mission off the coast of Venezuela and has ordered it to head immediately to the Middle East. Make no mistake, this is a massive development. You have to understand, the USS Gerald Ford isn't just a ship, it is arguably one of the strongest aircraft carriers in existence. American analysts claim this is the most powerful piece of naval hardware ever created. This is the crown jewel. And this, my friends, is the lethal force that was arguably the missing piece for an American attack on Iran. The truth is this, the New York Times broke this news exclusively, but despite all these headlines, and despite all the chaos happening in the Gulf, there is a massive question that no one seems to be able to answer. Why hasn't America struck Iran yet? And I wasn't satisfied with the standard answers, so I started doing some digging. I looked into deep dive reports and DAC channel statements from officials who are telling us exactly what is happening behind closed doors. And honestly, what I found explains a lot. The research I found was incredible. It connects the dots and tells you exactly where we stand regarding the Iran war. Is it happening or not? What really happened after Trump-Netanyahu meeting? And what is the analysis coming out of the White House? There is a lot of critical information here that you need to hear. But before I break down these details, frankly, when you have one side screaming war and the other one screaming peace, you need a tool to see through the fog. And that is why I used ground news. You see, it shows you the blind spots, what the left is hiding and what the right is hiding. I want you to have the same intelligence tools I use to track these narratives. So I've partnered with them to give you 40% of their Vantage plan. This is their highest tier with unlimited access to their data and to their articles. Click the link in the description and grab the Vantage plan and see who is actually putting the strings. Now, let's get straight into the subject. The new information we have today might look different to you, and it might be the first time you're hearing about this whole carrier withdrawal. But before I get to that, I honestly want to start with the weird Netanyahu-Trump meeting and what the Israeli newspapers are saying about it, because I think we can all agree that the meeting between Trump and Netanyahu was weird. There was no leaks that came out afterwards, and the only thing we got was Trump himself coming out and saying we didn't agree on anything and that he prefers diplomacy. But if you look at the Israeli press today, they are pointing out some very critical details. They're saying Netanyahu returned frustrated, and think about it. First, his visit was only 30 hours, give or take, and he returned immediately to Israel, and that tells you there was something off about this meeting. And second of all, Donald Trump has never really sat with Netanyahu for 3 full hours and then comes out giving vague statements like we didn't agree on anything. That has never really been Trump's style. And the analysis suggests that Netanyahu wanted to impose specific conditions. He wanted to open additional topics that Trump simply didn't want to discuss. This was obvious when a reporter asked Trump, did Netanyahu tell you not to continue negotiations? Trump shut it down immediately. He said, no one talks to me about this subject and I talk to Iran how I want. And just listen to them.
Please.
Why does Prime Minister Netanyahu want you to stop negotiating with Iran?
He is, you're saying stop entertaining, stop talking to them? Didn't say that, we didn't discuss that. I'll talk to them as long as I like, and we'll see if we can get a deal with them, and if we can't, we'll have to go to phase 2. Phase 2 will be very tough for them. I'm not looking for that.
And then Trump doubled down. He confirmed that Iran must reach a deal because if they don't, the outcome will be catastrophic. And by the way, this line about Iran must make a deal or it will be catastrophic, I've heard this statement more than I've heard Trump's name connected to the Epstein file this past week. Basically, Trump has one message: make a deal or the regime falls. On the other side, Netanyahu was trying to signal that Trump gave him some assurances. He's trying to imply that Trump is already adopting the Israeli position, imposing restrictions on the missile program, not just the nuclear one. But what I can confirm to you from all my research is this: the meeting wasn't really good. And while they might agree on the broad strokes, they disagree on the method. Trump wants to run the show. He agreed on how to deal militarily with Iran, but he wants to be the face of it. He doesn't want Netanyahu in the picture at all. And honestly, this makes sense for a simple reason. Trump is setting the stage for his own military move. And the proof for this, he said, we will move other naval pieces towards Iran.
Carrier that you decided to send, talk about why you made that choice.
Well, in case we don't make a deal, we'll need it.
Are you worried?
We'll need it. If we have a deal, we could cut it short. It'll be leaving very soon. We have one out there that just arrived. If we need it, we have it ready. A very big force.
He didn't say which ship. The Navy didn't say which ship. It was the Wall Street Journal that was claiming that it was the USS George Bush that is on its way to the Middle East. But then they revised it and dropped the exclusive yesterday. It wasn't the George Bush coming from Japan. It was the USS Gerald Ford coming from Venezuela. Even the New York Times was surprised. You have to realize the Ford left US ports back in July. It has been at sea for a very long time. It was supposed to head to Europe, then it got diverted to Venezuela. And here's the crazy part. The Ford was actually scheduled to go home as it needed maintenance. It needed upgrades, and it was waiting for the return to base order. Instead, the Navy ordered it to turn around and steam full speed to the Middle East. If a carrier moves from Venezuela to the Gulf, you are talking about a 2-week journey. This aligns perfectly with Trump's timeline. He said Iran must reach a deal within this month. Now, I'm telling you this, when the Ford arrives, the war won't start the day after. It depends on other weapons and logistics. But by the time the Ford gets there, we're looking at the largest American military buildup the Middle East has ever seen in history. And the fact they chose the Ford and not the George Bush is the message. If this was just politics, the George Bush would have been enough. But using the Gerald Ford, that is a terrifying deterrent force. It tells allies and enemies alike, America is locking down the Strait of Hormuz. So the picture is clear. The military is moving, the threats are huge, but the question remains, why hasn't America struck yet? And I dug into intelligence reports to find the answer, and honestly, what I found makes total sense because it relies on what officials are saying when the cameras are off. It turns out the Venezuelan scenario we saw a few weeks ago is being applied to the Iran scenario. There is a pattern with how Trump handles crises. Look at Venezuela, for example. Step 1, he escalated by sending ships. Step 2, he escalated more by sending before. Then step 3, he stopped. He called for talks. He told Maduro to negotiate. Maduro refused. Then step 4 was Trump going silent. And as you can see, this is the exact script that is being played out right now with Iran. Trump escalated, and now just before the trap snaps shut, he opens the door and says, come, let's sit and talk. He will talk until his plan is complete, until every single military asset is in position. Then he enters the stage of silence, and then the operation begins. So why didn't he strike immediately? Why use this art of the deal tactic? Because according to US officials, the US Army simply wasn't ready last week. First, if America had struck when Trump first threatened, it would have been a weak, limited strike, and that would have been a disaster. It would have provoked Iran without destroying them. Secondly, the targets weren't ready. Iran isn't Venezuela. It's a fortress. Intelligence during peace is different from intelligence during war, and you need time to lock into the targets. And third of all, the allies weren't even ready. Saudi Arabia and the UAE refused to open their airspace, and without them, America's options aren't limited. And NATO, they aren't even in the room. On the other hand, Trump was betting on something else, an internal collapse. The intelligence reports suggest the Americans thought the Iranian regime looked weak. They thought that the protests would topple the supreme leader from the inside, but the surprise was that the regime didn't blink. They cracked down. No coup happened. No security forces defected. No opposition leader rose up. The economic conditions in Iran are trash, and the currency is dead. The oil fleet is getting hit. They have no resources for war or a peace, and yet the regime is still standing. So Trump is realizing that the internal collapse isn't happening fast enough. The circumstances are forcing his hand, but his diplomatic options are running out. Okay, so what is Iran's play? Iran wants only one thing: survival. They're entering these talks to waste time, yes, but they want to save their skins. They know the war will be on their soil this time. They want something they can sell to their people while keeping the supreme leader on the throne. But here's the problem. If they sell out the nuclear program, the supreme leader falls. That is a red line. And if they sell out the missile program, the regime falls. So They're stuck. They want to survive, but they can't give America what it wants. And America? America looks at its own safety. It wants to destroy the nuclear program forever, especially now that Turkey and Saudi Arabia are talking about getting their own nukes. I think we can safely reach the conclusion that we are walking the Venezuelan playbook. The negotiations are a stalling tactic, but the military movements are real, and things are going to get worse. The most critical dilemma is this. If America miscalculates now, after this historic buildup, it will be catastrophic. The reports warn that even with all this power, the US is taking on Iran alone. They need a plan that is decisive and final. The situation is critical, but this was just my piece. What is more important is hearing what you think in the comments down below. Finally, I hope you found value in this video, and if you did, drop a like, and to watch more videos like this, consider subscribing to WMX Intel to stay ahead of the curve. I'm out.